Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Matt and Mike's X-Files CCG. We got an email the other day.
Oh, you saw that?
I did see the email. There was a file attached.
Um,
And I figured, let's just play it.
yeah.
Let's see what's the worst that can happen, right?
Nah.
Yeah. Here you go.
Hey, Matt and Mike, this is Dave May. I just wanted to leave you a message. I'm not the Dave you should be talking to. You should be talking to Dave Frank. OG. He's original gamer. You know, there is no Dave May without Dave Frank. He was there from the beginning. Maybe he was even there before the beginning. And so if anybody knows the truth, if anybody knows all the secrets to the X-Files CCG, it's Dave. And so if you accept this mission, go find Dave Frank. Obviously, this message, it'll self-destruct in 3, 2.
Mike and Matt bringing back the mid to late 90s. Mike and Matt bringing back X-Files CCG.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Matt and Mike's X-Files CCG. Copyrighted, requested.
Right?
We have a great guest with us today, one of the OGs, as Dave May puts it.
Original gamer.
Original gamer, Mr. David Frank. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen. I got you.
Yeah, so you were, oh man, so you were one of the OG guys at USPC and NXT and that whole thing. How did you start at USPC? I mean, what gave you the gall to get into the business to get your foot in the door?
So it started before USPC games actually existed. Not before USPC, because USPC has been around since, in one iteration or another, United States Playing Card Company, since shortly after the Civil War. So they have been making playing cards OG for real. So for me, it all started in like 1977, 1978. I blundered into the animated Hobbit movie that was playing in black and white on my television. And I went, this is cool. And that sort of fostered a love for fantasy things. So from there, read The Hobbit, read The Lord of the Rings. Also, I liked model building and miniatures, and there was in my local library, they had a subscription for some reason to a magazine called Military Wargamer, and it had 1/72nd scale HO scale guys. And I'm like, wow, cool, I could play games with these. So I have to go out and buy a bunch of Airfix World War II guys and tanks and shoot at them with rubber bands and stuff. And in that magazine, there were ads for different stores, mostly like in New York City, and for Dungeons and Dragons. And I went, ooh, I don't know what that is, but it sounds cool. So I got introduced to that when I was 16. And so at this point, liked board games, liked military board games, like the old SPI and Avalon Hill games, which some of your viewers may know. Got involved in role-playing games and went off, and after college, left college early and joined the Army. And while I was there, I learned about his modern military miniatures and got involved with that. And from there, got involved with fantasy and science fiction miniatures with a company called Games Workshop. And when I was getting ready to leave the Army, there was a copy of Games Workshop's magazine called White Dwarf, and they had a recruitment campaign. If you'd love to join us, give us a call, write us. So I sent them my resume, And through dogged ignorance and perseverance, they finally decided to give me a job. And that job was to go to high schools and give them Games Workshop stuff to their Dungeons and Dragons clubs if they had them and stuff. And that job failed miserably. But there's more to it. But I got involved with some college groups and some game conventions. And so I started going and demonstrating the Games Workshop products at local conventions and stuff. And that led to a bigger program and a bigger convention presence. In those days, Games Workshop went to some of the big conventions like Origins and Gen Con and the Game Manufacturers Trade Show, but not a lot of the little ones. And so I started going to some of the little ones. And then my boss called me in and he gave me about a half a page of notes. And he was going to start a scheme. And to the British, a scheme doesn't really have the same negative connotation that it does here in the States. So this was a plan. And the plan was he wanted to pay gamers in product to run demonstration games at conventions and at stores. And that was the genesis of the Outrider program. And so I took my half a page of notes and went off and created the Outrider program. And two guys from Southern California fairly early on joined the program. Ron Kent and Duncan McFadden. You may have heard of those guys.
Yeah, I think they might be the very top of the list at the back of the
No,
advanced rules
that's
for X-Files
not.
CCG.
I don't think so.
Yeah, under game
They
design.
are.
Yeah. Yeah, right
So
there.
Oh, huh. I didn't know that.
Right?
Yeah.
So they had a lot of interests, gaming wise, and they were also big sport fans as well. And I have a picture. I have lost track of those guys. And to quote Dean Haglund as Langley, my kung fu has been weak. I have not been able to track down either of those guys. But this is Games Day from 1994. And that is Ron Kent. And that is Duncan McFadden. And those guys paid their own way, all those guys did, to come to Baltimore to participate as Outriders in Games Day. We put them up, we fed them, we gave them product, but pretty much in those days, you paid your own way. So not too long after that, they met each other. Actually, before that, they met each other, and they started doing events and stuff together. They decided they wanted to do some game design. And Duncan had gotten some investors involved, and they did two sports games. They did Red Zone, which was based on NFL football, and they did Top of the Order, which was based off of Major League Baseball, and they actually had the licenses to use players and stuff. Really, Top of the Order was supposed to be bottom of the ninth, but that had already been trademarked, so they couldn't use it. So that is where Donruss got involved. Donruss was a sport card manufacturer. Not the top, not the card manufacturer that you think of first, but they were doing all right. And Donruss over the years had also done a number of non-sport collectible cards based on the Addams Family and Dragnet and movies like, at that point, they had just recently done cards for the movie Twister, basically releasing collectible card sets. And that's where NLS, November Lazar Shear, comes into the picture. Those guys were doing all the screen capture and the graphics work for the cards that Next Games was doing. So Next Games did Red Zone and Top of the Order. NLS was doing the production work for that. Donruss was selling them. And somehow through all of that, they got the opportunity to do the X-Files collectible card game. Now, the X-File trading cards had already been, that license had already been granted to Topps. So Donruss and NLS and Next Games had to negotiate with Topps and pay them for the right to public. Everybody gets paid, which is some of the reason for the demise of the X-Files collectible card game, but we'll get to that. So at this point, Duncan and Ron had put together their team in La Jolla, California, just outside San Diego. They had done pretty well through Donruss with Top of the Order and with Red Zone, and they were coming online to do the X-Files collectible card game. So they contacted me in early 1996, and they wanted me to come on board at Next Games and basically put together an Outrider program for them and be in charge of their volunteers, the guys that went and ran demos, and be in charge of their convention events and such.
All right.
I was pretty intrigued by that, and the fact that it doubled my salary. I was like, yeah. And then they went, well, okay, but you're kind of marketing, so NLS is going to pay you. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. So I was working remote from Baltimore at the time, and I went to meet with the NLS guys and the Next guys a number of times, and Duncan and Ron and the guys, Dean Haglund had mentioned that he'd gotten a watch from Next Games.
Yeah.
Yep.
Here is my watch from Next Games. Their logo is really pretty cool.
Huh.
But it has not had a band for several years, and the battery's been dead for a couple of decades. But now you guys are making me think maybe I need to put new batteries and put a band on it and wear it.
Oh yeah, you kidding
yeah.
me? Yeah, yeah, that's a flex right there, man.
Yeah, it is.
You just be like, "Hey, welcome back to the program."
So now I'm working for NLS, technically, doing stuff for Next. We went to the Gamma Trade Show in Atlantic City that year. We had the white playtest cards that everyone has talked about.
Yep.
I took the white playtest cards to, there was a pretty substantial gaming store called Neutral Ground, which was really more of a playing hub more than a store, and ran a number of demos with guys there. Introduced it at the Gamma Trading, at the Gamma Trade Show to some of the other guys in the industry that I knew. And it was by and large well received, but like most things that people like, it was made fun of. And so there was one guy in particular, Dave Gensler, who was like, started saying, "Well, is your X-Files zombie mania?" And so that sort of became our tagline. Is your X-Files zombie mania? So I don't know why we thought that was funny, because it hasn't aged very well, but we thought that was hilarious. So then Donruss was owned by Leaf Candy. Leaf Candy made Jolly Ranchers and Chuckles and some other things. And Leaf was owned by Hutamaki Oi. Say that 3 times fast.
Tukamaki Oi.
Hutamaki Oi.
Tukamaki Oi.
Hutamaki Oi. Got it.
I think that is Japanese.
Yeah.
Probably.
From Finland. It is a Finnish conglomerate that did mostly paper plates and paper cups and disposable cutlery for fast food. So how they owned Leaf, I don't know. How they got involved with Leaf owning Donruss, I don't know. They didn't either. They decided they were done. So in early 1996, they were selling it all off. And nobody bought Leaf, but Jolly Ranchers and Chuckles got sold to Hershey. So you can still enjoy Jolly Ranchers if you so desire to this day. Donruss kind of went away. It's been reborn. But so the rights then to everything for publishing went to United States Playing Card Company. And so I ceased being an employee of November Lazar Shear in June and became an employee of United States Playing Card Company, USPC Games. And my title was like director of the collectible card community and event planning or something. It was like 3 lines long. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. So that was just before Origins, which happens now each year in Columbus in the summertime. And Origins was the first big game show where we were gonna debut and actually show the X-Files card game. While we'd shown it to retailers, we only had the white cards. But while it is called the Gen Con deck, which I understand you guys are now in possession of one or two, the Gen Con deck was made for Gen Con, but we used it at Origins. And Origins, Ron and Duncan came and Andy, and we needed some playtest guys to run demos so that we could run demos for folks to get them going. And that's where Brian and Dave May entered the picture. Brian and Dave May had been doing playtest stuff for Red Zone and Top of the Order and for the X-Files. So I met Dave and Brian at Origins 1996. Then Gen Con came around and we brought them back along with some other guys for Gen Con. And that's where we had Dean Haglund and Tom Braidwood. We tried to get Bruce Harwood, who played Byers as well, but for some reason we couldn't get him, so we only had 2 of the lone gunmen. And I remember well our trip to the safe house that Dean regaled in his interview.
Yes.
I remember dancing on top of a table. Now, I was a teetotaler in those days, so I was completely sober, the only one in the crew. But I was still dancing with Tom Braidwood, with Tom Frohickey on a table to YMCA. Good times.
I don't imagine why someone would not do that. So I think you're in the clear.
Yeah, I get it.
Enjoyed it quite a bit. So then the game was released in November. We hired a local guy to be a customer service dude. Now, Dave made it clear. I mean, clear. Let me say, he made it clear that he really wanted to be involved in the gaming industry. And he made that clear all throughout Origins. And he made that clear all throughout Gen Con. And he made that clear repeatedly after that. Now, you met Dave. Dave did the intro. Thanks, Dave. Dave has 3 things. He has P, P, and P. He has a passion for the game industry. Now, he loves collectible card games. Collectible card games were not my jam. I was into miniatures and I was into role playing. And card games were cool, but they were not my sweet spot. Dave loved card games. Dave loved sports stuff. Dave loved the community. So he had a huge amount of passion. Dave is persistent like nobody I have ever known. Once he grabs onto something like a bulldog, he is not letting go.
Yeah.
Dave is also oddly persuasive. You wouldn't necessarily get that at first blush, but he will get under your skin. And actually that combined with the persistence means that Dave usually got done what Dave wanted to get done. And then you met him. Well, not in person, but people tend to underestimate him. And he knows that. And he uses that to his advantage. So.
Well, I mean, he's a pastor. Yeah. I mean, and I've had, it's been quite the honor after, first talking to him, him and I, and Matt as well. We've had some very personal conversations with him. Because, I mean, he's not just part of this show and part of this community, but he really is just such a great guy that, Like if I really felt like something was going on, I could reach out to him and he would at least listen and give me advice. And that alone, for the fact that he's a preacher, I mean, I get it. I totally get it.
There is nothing that he would not do for me, period. Hands down. Nothing else. So, and he and Brian were a match set. So it was thought that, well, we're going to need some more customer service folks. And it's like, well, you know, I know who we could hire. And so I lobbied and got Dave hired. Technically, I was his boss, but not, I was the guy who told him what to do, but I wasn't technically his boss. So there was me. Bob Markese had come from Donruss. He was the sales manager, and he had been in the sales manager over Top of the Order and Red Zone. And so he sort of came to USPC from Donruss. And then there was Ronnie Noyes, who was our marketing person, and she had been around the industry some. She had some experience with Watson. So it was Bob, Ronnie, and I, and then we hired Dave. And Brian just showed up with Dave. And as Brian mentioned, he would just come, and we're like, dude, you can't do work and us not pay you. And I don't, and again, you know, we're talking the better part of 2.5 decades at this point. So I don't remember exactly why we were willing to hire him for real, but Bob and I were able to get him to come on board as a contractor. So he spent his time at USPC, you know, basically doing the same thing Dave was doing. And I love Brian. Brian is Samwise Gamgee to Dave's Frodo. No doubt.
Yeah,
That's all right. All right. Yeah,
So
Brian's also such a great guy. And we spoke to him, but we actually got to meet him in person when we went to Montana and sit down and have breakfast with him. And just such a really great guy, so honest and upfront and compassionate. Just that was quite an honor too. So
yeah.
So first edition was released. 80 million cards were printed. It was, now to sort of set the stage for where things went wrong. You've got Suits in the Midwest who no cards, and they have been printing cards since the Civil War. And you've got Bicycle, you've got B, you've got Aviator. They were like 80% of the world's casino market. They were a large part of domestic card playing, and they thought they knew what they were doing. And they really didn't want to hear much from, you know, typical gamer types. So early on, a lot of decisions were made without much input from anybody else. Hence, the ultra rare debacle in the booster boxes. Hence the...
Thanks for that. High five.
Yeah, high school.
Hence the card collation difficulties in the Premier Edition. Now, truth be told, not a whole lot of thought went into that. Granted, there were the 20 card bands in the Premier deck, and that was thought, okay, that gives you the core of what you need to play. But, you know, Mulder and Scully were difficult to find. And as you mentioned, as a lot of people have mentioned, you could get boxes and you could get boosters that were nigh on worthless. So it didn't take long for then some of the upper management at USPC maybe to sort of shield themselves to start going, all right, let's talk to you guys about what we ought to do. And what we did was we actually listened to the customer base. We listened to the gamers and what was what. And that is where second edition came out. Now, while I was responsible for the special agent program, once Dave May came on board, his passion for collectible card games and his love for the community, I'm like, dude, you run with it. what I started doing more was being in charge of the logistics of the shows, showing up early, setting things up, making sure everybody had everything they needed for the show and for the event. And so, my role there was more logistics rather than being the face. And Dave sort of became the face of us at the conventions, and a great job at it with Brian as well. And he did, typically make, like Kevin had mentioned, he would show up at the tournaments and just start playing people. And, hey, here's my deck. It's got a pair of X's. It's got a pair of No One So Paranoid. It's got a pair of these other ultra rare cards. Oh, you want to know? Hey, I see you're playing Molder. Here, have an ultra rare Molder, because that would look cooler in your deck than this regular Molder. We just handed stuff out. So when we weren't doing events, I got sort of pulled into doing more of the production type stuff. So I would sit on the production meeting. It was cool because I was good at logistics. I was good at sort of going, all right, we want to have this thing happen. What are the things that we need to get there? Which is project management, but I hadn't had any real formal experience in that. And so I got to sort of sit in about the time we were getting ready to do The Truth Is Out There and then 10/13/61. And so you know what the difference is.
Oh, yeah.
One of the big ones is, I don't remember if I was personally responsible for the hole in the back.
Was a good idea.
Yeah.
I think I was, and I'm going to take credit for it because it was 25 years ago. But I was responsible because then they were like, all right, well, what are we going to do? It's like, all right, some people were like, hey, we need Molder, we need Scully. So in The Truth Is Out There, there's 2 number 1s, 2 number 2s, 2 number 3s, 1 through 6. The 50 card packs are all the same. 1, 3, and 5 will have Molder. 2, 4, and 6 will have Scully. And then there was the question of, well, how do we designate that? And I did come up with, well, hey, just put a card on top that has the number that we need to show in the hole.
Yep.
And hence we have The Truth Is Out There. So if you were to buy a box, you would get 6 Molders and 6 Scullys, because there'd be a Molder in both the 1s, both the 3s, both the 5s, and a Scully in both the 2s, both the 4s, both the 6s. There was one problem with the fixed decks in The Truth Is Out There. Do you know what it was?
Well, are you talking about the Gregors or?
Nice, you got it.
I wasn't responsible for the layout, but I was responsible for reviewing the layout. Somebody missed the Gregors. Now, we then sort of printed up a bunch of them and put them in Inquest magazine and made them convention promos. And I have
Nice.
a cut sheet of the Gregors that I have mounted, much to the chagrin of my wife, because it was expensive to mount, to remind myself, in the words of Ronald Reagan, to trust but verify.
That is awesome.
I don't know that I can take the blame all myself for it, but I'm the kind of guy that does. So, I consider myself responsible. I'm taking credit for the cool thing, the whole, but I'm also taking the blame for the fact that, the Gregors didn't make it into, but we did put a fair number of them out there. Do you guys have a fair number of the V2 Gregors?
Yeah.
We probably
Okay.
do. Yeah.
Yep. So
I might ask for some because I only have one.
What?
oh wow,
Those same
yeah,
sound,
I've got
Other than the uncut sheet.
yeah. Actually, I kind of have a question about that just off the top of the cuff. So right behind me here is this is a Truth Is Out There set of rares.
Yep.
And we know that when they made the Truth Is Out There, they took out all the original ultra rares,
Yeah.
and then they replaced them with other cards. Some of them rare, some of them ultra rare. Was the Gregors, was that basically just like you guys made one extra card that was like enough, and then somebody, like, once the Gregors got missed, somebody went, crap, we could have gotten rid of that tracking the killer card and put the Gregors in there, and then it would have been an even sheet? Or how did that happen?
No. What happened was the Gregors is number 0130. And what happened was, I don't remember the number, but a different one got stuck in. And I don't think that it was an X-File. So there was a duplicate. So I don't know if it was 0120 or a duplicate of 0129, but somehow it had just gotten missed and overlooked. And so instead of, I don't recall, are there 36 X-Files?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So instead of that, there were just, because it was intended to be there. It was part of the fixed deck. And so something else has got stuck in the fixed deck. And for a while I kept, and I don't know what I've done with it, but I had sort of the sheet where we realized that it was not quite right and went grr. So if you look in all 6 of the fixed decks from the Truth Is Out There, you will see, like, if the X-Files are in order, and I don't recall if they were put in order, and there's going to be another card there where the Gregors was supposed to have been. And for the life of me, I can't remember what it was.
Huh.
It was another common. It wasn't, anything significant. But no, it was not intentional at all. And so what we did was we then scrambled and did a bunch of sheets of it and sent it off to Inquest for an insert and sent it off to tournaments as a promo card and conventions and such.
Yeah, other than what I have in my sets, I'll have to take a look. But in my promo set, I actually only have one extra.
Okay.
So does that make the Gregors the only card where it has its own uncut sheet?
Well,
Ooh.
yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Because the Gen Con promo deck was all one uncut sheet. For the Truth Is Out There, I don't know why we did it this way, but instead of doing like, sheets were 100 cards, and the fixed deck, so originally for the premiere, there would have been 5 sets of fixed decks. For the Truth Is Out There, I think you guys have some of the uncut sheets there. I know that Mike Mackey has some for sale, and it's got like deck 1 and 2. Why it doesn't have deck 1 twice, I don't know I don't remember why it was done that way, but so yeah, pretty much everything else was the Gregors is the only sheet that I can think of where it was printed as the only card on a sheet, and that was because it was a mistake that hadn't gotten into the sets.
Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is cool. See, I had wondered if the premier ultra rares, if they had just like printed one sheet of Deep Throats and then, but so basically they printed 10 of each on each sheet. So 100 total cards. And
Yes.
then as they came down the hopper, you were just putting them in the packs that were the ultra rare packs and just calling it a day.
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
Wow. That's crazy. All right.
David, I do have a question for you going back when you were talking about Duncan McDonnell and Ron Kent.
Mhm.
How were they able to lure you from your dream job at Games Workshop into X-Files CCG if that wasn't like your other dream?
That is a good question. First of all, I love Duncan and Ron, and I'm sorry that I've lost track of those guys. And they were big Games Workshop fans. And we were going to do huge things. We were going to do great things. You know, the X-Files was just the beginning. They were already working on a number of other games. And they wanted to expand and not just do card games. Obviously, the United States Playing Card Company wouldn't necessarily be involved in some of the other things, but they were, you know, going to do some military-oriented board games. I know Duncan in particular had aspirations of doing miniatures at some point. And as much as I loved Games Workshop, the opportunity to sort of have more say and double the salary went a long way. And comparing the weather in La Jolla, California to Baltimore, Maryland, yeah, that wasn't bad. Not that I ever ended up there, because I stayed in Baltimore, worked remote until I ended up in Cincinnati. And the weather in Cincinnati is not much different from the weather in Baltimore.
No.
No SoCal for this guy. So I've been doing all the yak, and I apologize. I'm sure you guys have some questions and some stuff you want to ask. Or
So I actually want to know, you had mentioned that, I think in your email, that you had left Dave to turn the lights off.
Yeah. So
when it all ended, can you kind of tell me, when was it that, like, you realized either the suits were screwing this up and all of a sudden word came down, hey, it's done, the dream's over? Kind of, how did that process go? Because I know that there is some bad blood in the circles, and I don't want to touch on that if no one wants to talk about it. That's not the intention of the show.
No.
But it did happen so abruptly that it was like, even for us in high school, we're like, all right, we got this new set coming out. Holy crap, there's another one coming out. Oh, that's
Yeah.
you can't order that. It's
nothing.
done. Like, it just happened so quickly. How did that go down?
So Truth Is Out There went out, and 1013 went out. It was now Gen Con Origins 1997. In hindsight, I should have realized. So, you know, Bob and Ronnie and I answered to one of the vice presidents, and I don't remember his name. I cannot for the life of me. I've been racking my brain. But he was no longer our boss, and the guy who had been in charge of Canada, Doug Wilson, became our boss, and that was probably the first sign that something was not going quite well. And as I think that that particular vice president wanted to sort of start distancing himself. So let's talk about the United States Playing Card Company. Great company for playing cards. Now, most everything that they did was done on big, huge, continuous presses. Sort of like, you know, when you see those old-timey movies of newspapers being printed.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what all of the bee, the bicycle, the aviator, the regular, you know, cards were all printed on those big continuous feed presses. They had purchased, not too long before all of this happened, a sheet-fed Heidelberg press, and I know you guys have done some research because you saw some of the printing marks on some of the uncut sheets.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that it was newer than 1990, but they may have bought it used, or it may have been there for a little while now. Their USPC's first dabbling into it was Magic. In 1995, in April of 95, Magic 4th edition was due to be published. Those cards had all been printed up to that point by Cardamundi and USPC, and they were beginning to be concerned about counterfeit Magic cards because Magic was such a big deal. And USPC said, hey, we'll print your cards. And they printed them, and things went horribly awry. I don't know what went wrong because everybody that was there at the time, if they weren't officially sworn to secrecy, they weren't saying anything. So they only sort of, in passing, mentioned, yeah, we've had some interactions with WotC. But, if you go look at Wikipedia and stuff, yeah, they printed 4th edition, but those cards, for whatever reason, were never released to the public. Cartamundi then published that set and pretty much everything else after that. So USPC already had a black eye. They felt they really, 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 really wanted some of that Magic money because Magic the Gathering was making money hand over fist like no other collectible card game ever. And it really did, there in the early to mid 90s, revitalize the gaming industry because before Magic, it was sort of eking along as a cottage niche industry. TSR, the guys that created Dungeons and Dragons, certainly were not the powerhouse that they had once been because of their own difficulties. Magic came along and really revitalized the industry. In my heart of hearts, I feel those guys didn't like being told, maybe you need to listen to somebody else. Maybe you need to listen to the customers. Maybe you need to listen to the distributor chain. Maybe you need to listen to the retailers and be proactive in terms of what we're, taking what the market wants to have done in place. And many at USPC felt that they knew better and they really, really didn't want to be told. Then we also had the difficulty, and David had mentioned, you guys had talked about cards going back and forth for disapproval and Gillian Anderson not liking her hair. To be honest, I don't know whether Gillian Anderson ever got the opportunity to say whether she liked her hair or not, because there were so many levels of approval before that. It had to be, Ron and Andy and Duncan sort of created the cards, and they sort of said, from this episode, we want something from here. NLS would then do the screen capture of the images that they wanted. They would mock some things up. That would go to Fox. Well, that would come to us. We had to approve it. That would go to Fox. Fox would have to approve it. That would go to 1013. 1013, which was Chris Carter's production company, needed to approve it. It needed at some point to go to Chris Carter for him to approve it. And all along there, you had people just going, nope, nope, nope. That was irksome. We, USPC, didn't like being told, no, we don't like that, change it. And then we'd change it and they wouldn't like it again. So that whole layer of approval getting through those gates was always a stick in the it was always caused the difficulty. The other thing was USPC didn't like the fact of who all had to be paid. Because remember, Next Games got paid, NLS got paid, Topps got paid, Fox got paid, 1013 got paid. All that came off of the money that was made. Now, truth be told, the X-Files was not a failure as card games go. In its short run, we sold $4 million worth of product. $4 million worth of product. Premiere was 80 million cards. That would have been a very substantial amount of money for most companies in the industry. But USPC just really didn't feel that it was worth it. So it was decided between Origins and Gen Con that they were going to turn things off. Ronnie got let go because, well, we don't need any marketing. I was let go, but I was allowed to go to Gen Con to sort of do some marketing so I could land somewhere. Bob, the sales manager, he stayed on board for a while. Not too long after that, he got let go. And they kept him on board basically to sweep up the floor and turn off the lights. Now, again, what I say, the 3 Ps, passion, persuasion, and persistence. He had been listening all the time to the things that USPC wanted. And what they wanted was they wanted some low cost, mass market properties that they could put into Walmart, Kmart, Target, big box stores. And Dave said, why don't you guys give me a chance? And he actually had done a pretty good job. They really thought that they were going to have to just shred all of the remaining X-Files product, everything left over from Red Zone to Top of the Order. I don't know what happened with that stuff. They probably did shred that. And it turns out that, USPC was able to get a couple of nickels to rub together from Mike for, the X-Files stuff. And that, along with Dave being persistent, just sort of generated the ability to get him his shot with Journeyman Press. And they already had the Scooby-Doo license.
Mm-hmm.
And they somehow in that process, USPC ended up with owning the rules to the X-Files collectible card game.
Wow. How do you own rules to a game? I mean,
Yeah.
it took us 25 years to figure out the rules to the game, and they owned them the whole time.
We're still learning. Yeah.
Well, we didn't say they weren't without their problems, but because they owned it, and shortly after that, sort of at that time, the next crew went their own way. Truth be told, USPC was none too gentle. I have to admit that I was butthurt about it for quite a while. I know that Ron and Duncan and the next guys, felt like they weren't treated fairly. Dave was given lemons and he ended up making some lemonade, at least for a little while. And so they did the Scooby-Doo game. And Dave was talking the talk. He was wanted to do, mass market stuff, but at the same time, he still wanted some street cred as a game designer himself. And that's where, the Journeyman Press game, and I just went out of my head, the collectible card game based on the Microsoft video game, Age of Empires. So, he sort of had taken some of his success with getting some of the things done that USPC wanted done with some mass market products to sort of leverage the ability to make Age of Empires. Except now you still have a bunch of suits, and Dave and his crew had a TV, and they had a couch, and they had a satellite dish. And these guys are going, why do those guys have a couch and a satellite dish? And for reasons I don't know, things fell apart, and Scooby-Doo didn't get the mass market distribution that it had expected. And that was sort of the beginning of the end there. So truth is, most companies would have been happy with the money that the X-Files made, but there were a lot of hands in the pie, and USPC felt that it wasn't getting enough of the pie. Plus, it made a lot of dumb decisions in that, okay, now I know, Mike, that you have played some Magic. Have you done any other sort of gaming?
Oh God, the only other one that I tried, but I never really got into was that vampire one.
Okay.
I had a lot of that, but I couldn't get into it. It just wasn't my style. But yeah, I did a lot of Magic. I remember this is an a-hole move, by the way. I know that as an adult. The local card shop, they couldn't get me a box of Weatherlight. Was the
Okay.
Right? So I went to this other place. They had a box, and I was like, "Oh, cool! I'll buy it here." and then take it to that first place and open it there and sort it there. Kind of a dick move.
Yeah.
That's all right. That's all right. So Matt, how about you? I mean, I know you do some. I know your introduction to it was through Mike, but have you?
Yeah, I played Magic a little bit about the same time. I remember trying the Star Wars game that was out around that time.
Oh yeah.
Was it Aaron Hamma that used to play it?
Yeah, everybody that we knew, it was two games that were being played at the splash page in Montana. It was either Magic or it was Star Wars.
Yeah.
And man, those things were huge. But I never sorry everybody, please don't hate me any more than you already do. But I'm not a huge Star Wars fan. I don't get it. Every explanation in the movie, well, it's because of the Force. That's a cop-out to me. You can't just blame the Force on every problem you come up with in the movie. That's just me, though. I'm just saying. Anyway.
Have either of you guys ever been to a game convention?
I went to PAX.
Did you?
Okay.
I went to PAX.
Now, PAX is a little different because PAX is a video game convention.
Yeah, that's true.
So the difference is at PAX and at like San Diego Comic-Con and some of those big shows where, because video games are real money. Adventure games, not real money. It's the difference is night and day. But so if you go to Origins or you go to in your neck of the woods, I'm trying to think of some.
Zero.
ThunderCon. Well, there's some in the Seattle area.
Well, we grew up. You got to remember, we grew up in Missoula, Montana.
Oh yeah. All right.
So
Yeah. No, there's nothing there.
Yeah, I didn't even see a skyscraper. I think the first skyscraper I ever saw was in Seattle in '98. So I mean, we just weren't around it. I mean, had we known about Gen Con, oh my God, Mom, Dad, can I borrow $500? Matt and I want to go to Gen Con. I would have done it.
Yeah, it would have been worth it.
You would have had a great time, but you would have found a lot of companies with like small pop-up booths, and the guys kind of get off the plane and they drag their stuff and they go there. And I remember the first event where we had our booth was Dragon Con in Atlanta in 1996. And this guy, oh, well, you're going to meet the guy from, I don't remember the name of the company that built the booth. I'm like, what? Yeah, he's going to be there to set it up. I'm like, what do you mean set it up? You kind of like pop it up, you slap some graphics on it, you're done. No. So this was all, so the X-Files booth was a big X-shaped booth if you looked at it from the top, and it had 4 double-sided 4-foot by 8-foot light panels that had graphics that had lights inside of them, Scully and Mulder and the X-Files logo and stuff. And then glass cases for displays, speakers, a stereo system. And Brian mentioned that, yeah, he had thought to bring his X-Files CD. And we were pretty much okay with that, because when you were inside the booth, it was just kind of, but everybody outside of the booth, was subjected to the X-Files theme from beginning to end of the show. We did not make a lot of friends in those days.
I'll actually put I'll put that up on the screen here. One of the things Brian gave us is he actually kept the blueprints for that booth. And,
okay.
And gave them to us. So I'll actually post that on this video so you can see the original blueprints to it. It looked pretty cool.
It was cool, but you had to truck in the booth in hard crates. You had to fly a guy from the company that made it to install it. And then at the end, you had to do it and ship it all back. Now, the other thing is, had you been to game shows, you would know that everybody sells product. And when you're selling product at retail. You're not selling it at 50% of retail like the game store. You're not selling it at 40% of retail like we're selling it to the distributor. You're selling it at full retail. And basically, that's how you pay for your convention appearances. Management at USPC said, yeah, well, we really don't want to handle cash. So we're not going to sell any product. We're going to let other people sell the product. So really, the X-Files, all of our convention events, all of our show appearances went from an opportunity to at least pay for themselves to just a huge money suck.
Wow.
So, and again, those decisions were made at Starfleet Command without any consultation. I just remember showing up going, wow. At Gen Con, the reservations were at Gen Con 96, where Dave and I met. Reservations were made late. And so all of the gamer hotels were full. But there was a high-end hotel a couple of blocks down, and those rooms were nice, but they were really, really expensive. USPC paid for all of it. So, and for instance, I mentioned Ronnie Noyes. Ronnie Noyes lived in the Seattle area. She never moved to Cincinnati. USPC flew her every week to Cincinnati, put her in a hotel, and then flew her back. They did the same for me for months before I moved from Baltimore to Cincinnati. Did the same for Bob. I mean, it was just the scope of the money to be made was not the scope of the money they expected to be made. So had they kept their expectations reasonable, had they played a little bit more low key, they should have been happy with $4 million, and it should have gone on for a long time. Instead, they decided, guess what? We're just going to keep printing casino cards. See ya.
Sounds fun while it lasted, though.
It was, well, and I remember Dave was like, wow, this is the game industry. I'm like, Dave, this is not the game industry. Do not get used to this, because this is not how we roll. But yes, it was great fun while it lasted.
Well, I gotta ask you, David. You do have some show and tell that you've shown some of it, but I noticed that Gen Con uncut sheet. Like, I really want to see that again. I don't know if anyone else has one of those. Can you,
if you show up, but could you also maybe take a photo of it for us too?
I will take a photo of it.
Awesome.
So you'll notice it's got 60 cards, and this is a 100-card sheet. So down at the bottom, these are the registration marks.
Okay.
One of the difficulties with the Heidelberg press is it was fast, but it took a while, usually several hundred sheets before the registrations were right. So you really had to do big print runs, and so they had to get it right with the fronts. Typically, they printed all the backs first, and then they printed the fronts after that. So I'll take a picture of that for you. There were 3 of them that were mounted officially at USPC and given to, I think it was the 3 biggest wholesale distributors that we sold through, sort of as an appreciation. And I went, well, I want that. And in those days, for some of that stuff, it was kind of loosey-goosey depending on who you were. Somebody had actually gotten into the cage and stole a bunch of ultra rares. And up the street here is a really big flea market called Traders World. And they were selling the ultra rares at Traders World. Well, they had sold them, and whoever they sold them to was selling them at Traders World. And that sort of started a kerfluffle. And we were all sort of under suspicion, but none of us, it basically was one of the sort of hourly employees at USPC that was not involved with the USPC game product, that had kind of finagled away into the cage and had stolen a couple of flats of ultra rares.
Wow.
a couple of flats? Jesus. Wow.
Can you imagine though? Dude, think about it. In the 90s, yeah. I'm like, hey, dude, a box this size. I'm like, hey, man, this is full of deep throats. What do you think we can get from this?
I don't know.
You know, it's interesting. It's interesting you bring that up. Matt's family member. Tell him about what we found.
Which card was that?
It's not the mulligan. It was not on the menu. Is that what it was?
Not on the menu. Yeah, my sister-in-law was at some auction in Montana, and they had a box. They had a bunch of different cards, but they had a box that said X-Files,
Mhm.
She just bought it blindly and opened it up, and it's a stack about that tall, and all of them are not on the menu.
Okay.
One card.
Wow.
So some
So-
normal card.
So like your boxes there, our flats were about that size. They were brown instead of white. And it would be pretty much a row of each card. So even though cards were printed, 100 cards up, oftentimes they'd be set, and then they'd be set in different hoppers. And really it was awesome to watch, particularly the booster packs, because it would be this foil that was on a continuous sheet that would roll down, and these card hoppers would shoot the cards onto it, and then at the end it would cut the foil, the sheeting that was to become the booster pack, and then fold it up and seal it, and then just launch them into the box. And it was fast. It was like shoot, 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 shoot. I mean, like when you're watching the newspaper being printed. I mean, it was really, really some cool technology and something to watch.
Nice.
So,
We also heard. Okay, so you had mentioned that you had some signed cards.
I do have some signed cards.
We're starting our collection slowly, but we don't have any of the huge players yet. Did you see our Kresge interview with David Lewis?
I did.
That guy was, oh man, that was a lot of fun. He was a great guy.
He signed a whole stack of cards.
Yeah, he signed like a stack, like an inch thick of cards. And I sent him like 50 cards. And I said, obviously, I want you to have some. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll just see what's up. And then when he got him, he sends me a message. Hey, I got the card. I sent him back. I signed all but 3. I kept 3 for myself. And I was like, wait. Okay.
So you guys know that back in the day, the show was filmed in Toronto, and a lot of the actors were Toronto guys. And I know that, pretty much, Dean said that, and, they've all said that. So USPC said, yeah, let's get someone. So there was a non-sports card show in Vancouver. Yeah. And so it's like, all right, hey, let's get Nick Lee, who played Krychek, to be our guest and sign some cards and do that stuff. It's like, okay, well, he's local, so it won't cost much money. Yeah. They contacted his agent and said, yeah, he'll be happy to, except he'd moved to Los Angeles. So we paid to bring him from Los Angeles to Vancouver for the show. And I had him sign several Krychek cards. So he had some ultra rares, got a couple Krychek cards. So he signed a bunch. Unfortunately, again, our art department did some really cool artwork, except, do you know how Nick Lee spells his last name?
Oh, they spelled his name wrong. Is it L-E? It's just
L-E-A?
L-E-A.
I thought it was L-E-A.
It is L-E-A. And we had this stuff with L-E-E.
Ooh.
So I am there, and we had, go silver paint Sharpies from the sign card. I'm like changing the E to an A. I did a pretty good job, but like, it was a little bit of an embarrassment. It's like, that's not how you spell my name. So I've got a Krychek double agent, an application for resources approved, and then 2 Krychek ultra rares and 2 Krychek regulars signed by Krychek.
Want to make
at a different show and we gave him a full set, and he was like flipping through them going, these are nice, and he sort of went to hand it back. It's like, no, those are yours, you get to keep them. So
wow.
How many Kresges would it take to get one of the signed Nick Lee?
Ooh. Yeah.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Oh, signed.
No.
So yeah, signed Kresge, and maybe a Langley and a Robin Mosley, Dr. Joe Ridley, maybe. Just throwing that out there.
All right. Well, we'll have to see what we can do.
To
McFadden. I was a big fan of Skinner. In fact, my deck that one of the few things that I kept was Skinner oriented. So at one of the shows, I had McFadden sign it, and oddly enough, Dean was there as well. And I have one of the few that I know of, No One So Paranoid.
Nice.
Not just signed by Tom Frohickey, not just signed by Dean Langley, but also signed by Bruce. And
Nice.
you see Bruce is in gold. And I don't remember how or where I got the third. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know how or where I got Bruce's signature on that, but I'm pretty pleased that I did.
Yeah, definitely. We only have them signed with the two. Just yeah.
I think
I do have a Gen Con deck Frohickey signed by Tom.
awesome.
Nice.
Oddly enough, I do not have a Langley signed by Dean. I might have at some point, but I don't any longer. And then last, and I don't know where I got this. Somebody gave it to me because they got it.
If you really want to trade, I've got 5.
Okay.
We'll just send you one. One of them's yours.
Yeah.
The twins that played Eve were at a convention, and so I've got a card signed by the Eves.
That's cool.
Erica and Sabrina Turinas.
Wow. That's actually the band Eve 6. They're named after that episode.
Okay.
Are they really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
They were huge X-Files fans, and they loved that episode. It was their favorite, so they called themselves Eve 6 after the show, because they were Eve 1, Eve 2, Eve 3, Eve 4. Yeah.
And then Eve 5?
5 came after. That's very good.
And then Eve 6.
Then 6. Yes,
Gotcha.
that's
Okay.
good, Matt. Very good.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. We're working on his Baby Einstein videos lately. He's doing good.
I had to use both hands, but I got it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this needs to be part of the video, but yeah, I've got a signed regular Krychek and signed Ultra Krychek that I'm willing to trade.
Oh,
Really?
Okay.
What are you looking for?
Yeah.
Well, I definitely want a Langley.
Done.
Yeah.
Weird, but what else? What's it worth to you?
We got Robin Mosley. We got Dr. Ridley. We got obviously Kresge. We got like 50 Kreskes. We have Detective Manners signed. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
You know who I always wanted to get, but I don't think I always wanted to get Charles Nelson Riley from Jose Chung.
Oh.
Oh.
Dax probably has it.
I'm
He
sure
has everything.
Dax has it. Yeah.
Dax is the one to trade with. He has everything.
Yeah, right. He'll see this video and be like, "Stop talking about me. You're gonna get me
I have
wrong.
10 of those.
Don't tell people where I live." Well, we do. I mean, we have a pewter to trade. If
I
you
didn't
want
think it
to.
was for trade.
Oh, you do not want to. Okay, so I remember you were talking to Mr. May about the pewters,
Yes.
and he told you there were how many Scullys?
There was only 2.
I thought there were only 2 Scullys and 5 Molders.
There are 2 Scullys. There are 5 Molders. So both the Scullys are accounted for.
Oh.
I know. Yeah, I know the who was it? Kevin's friend.
Yeah.
Had the Scully. See, I thought, and Kevin's actually in contact with Ron Kent.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's funny because what started this whole thing was Kevin contacted me on LinkedIn, and I'm like, yeah, I'd love to, because he's, just south. He's just across the river, northern Kentucky. He's next door to Cincinnati, and I'm like, yeah, I'd love to get back in touch with Dave May. Maybe you got his point of contact information. So he gave me Dave's, and Dave said, hey, you need to check out Mike and Matt and this channel because it is super awesome.
It's Matt and Mike now.
Yeah, we changed it to Matt and Mike because of the
It's going to be Mike and Matt forever.
Yeah, high five!
Okay, I'll high five.
You can try, but you're going to go down the route of New Coke.
True.
You're new Coke.
This will be the
Yeah.
divide between Mike and Matt and Mike.
Personally, I'm okay with it being Matt and Mike, but yeah, it's not going to go there.
It sounds better when it's Mike and Matt. It does. I'll be stubborn.
So, to continue with
Please
with
do.
show and tell, this should look familiar, but slightly different.
Is that the
Wow.
Donruss? Yep.
What?
Yeah.
This is a Donruss, and this is the only, I don't know how much of the Donruss stuff I saw, but I sort of kept on to that. And I've got the Gen Con deck molder.
Nice.
I've got the Premier Edition Ultra Rare molder. I've got the Premier Edition Joe Regular molder. I've got the Truth is Out There molder. And to quote Ariel from The Little Mermaid, isn't it neat? Wouldn't you think my collection's complete? I do have one more molder.
That is slightly different. So tell us about that. Basically, from my understanding, was the pewters were basically made one at a time, shipped to you guys for authorization. You would look at them and say, no, do it again. They'd remake it, or how did that work?
So they were all made at the same time.
Okay, they were.
As far as I know, because we got them all at the same time. And this happened sort of in that nether region before I was officially gone, but really was sort of gone. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think 1013 is going to approve any of that stuff. And I don't know that it ever even got to them. And obviously the project got canceled there. But yeah, this one may have gotten stolen from the Gen Con booth in 1997.
Wow.
Ah.
I only say that because I'm certain the statute of limitations is up.
You know, I am pretty damn certain that every single pewter in existence was probably not taken in a legal manner at the
So it was determined that it was missing.
Yep.
And apparently I made my bluff check
Yeah.
because I lied to Bob Markese straight to his face. Sorry, Bob. I lied to Dave May straight to his face. No, Dave, I don't have any idea. And he believed it
Oh
until
man.
I sent him a picture just recently and said, yeah, you said the fifth one got loose and was somewhere in Europe. No, it's right down the street.
So we know where all of them are now.
They are all so basically one of the, and I want to talk to Kevin because I think it's Jim Perry who ended up with the Scully and the molder, and I think that's who Kevin's in contact with. Jim Perry was the legal counsel for the United States Playing Card Company, and he was Dave May's advocate, and that's how Journeyman Press came to be.
Ah.
My understanding is that Bob Markese, the sales manager, has the other set, Scully and Mulder. Obviously, Dave has one, Brian had one, and you have one, and I have the last one. So they are now all accounted for.
Well, we have the one
That Brian, yeah,
Brian had.
that Brian.
So of the 5 molders, you have one, which was Brian's. Dave May has one. I have one. Bob Markese, the sales manager, and Kevin Moran has, I believe, what was Jim Perry's.
Yeah.
What an honor to be part of that group.
Right? It really is.
Yeah,
Pretty small and select.
We keep it right here.
Yeah, it's hermetically sealed. It's not. I'm not that rich. But it's in this nice display case, and when we got it, it's amazing how heavy it is.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Now, does yours? Here's a question for you, and I mean, I'll send some pictures. This one has almost like on the top right side, it has like they almost look like dog chew marks, don't they?
Yeah. It's got Yeah, they're spaced out, but there's just kind of like indented marks.
Yeah, I'll show you here. See if you can see it at all.
Is it the right side?
Well, okay, so pewter, they did some polishing after the fact. And again, these are sort of prototypes. So mine does not have, its sides are smooth.
Oh.
Okay.
So that may have been something that happened with Brian's after, he had it, because, dude, it's been the better part of 25 years.
Yeah.
Or it may have been, while it was at USPC, or it might have been in the process. Because again, these, I know David made the joke that, it was Scully's was the Medusa.
Yeah.
And was disapproved. I don't know. And really, it is the image from the ultra rare Scully card, where her hair is a little bit more flippant than the common version. But I don't think that these ever got anywhere to be approved before it got turned off.
Yeah, the Scully does not look good.
Yeah.
Mulder is definitely, I mean, it kind of what it reminds me of is like, that statue of David.
Yeah.
It looks right. It looks like a guy, but it doesn't quite look like a guy.
Especially the nose.
Yeah, it's a little.
It looks like a guy, but it doesn't look like the guy. No, it really does not. Sort of if you hold it up to the ultra rare card image, I mean, you can tell where it came from, but the translation is something.
Let me press a button to hermetically seal this back up here.
That's an excellent show and tell, David.
Very cool.
Say. I mean,
very, very enlightening. I know that I'd like to reach out to more people and talk to more people about it. Especially Ron and Duncan.
Yes,
definitely. And we're just. I was talking to Dave a little bit today, and he made it very clear that he's honored to be a part of what we're doing. And that seems very, very weird to me because we're just very honored to be talking to all you guys to actually rekindle what we started doing 25 years ago.
Yep.
And I think we're doing that a little bit with the tournament. I think Kevin told you a little bit about the tournament right now. In the next 2 weeks, I think we've got 7 games confirmed.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
I have not leaned forward to participate in the tournament, but I may be willing to do that in the future.
All right. Good to know.
Do you want to see what my deck would be?
Yeah.
Yes, please. You're not going to tell us though, right? Skinner deck.
Not just Skinner.
So for agents, we are Skinner, Blevins, Tom Colson, Colton, Lamont, and Henderson.
Yep.
So this is built around evidence collection, criminal investigation, and bureaucracy.
I'm going to go out on a hunch here. You have 2 cell phones in that deck, don't you?
I thought of no one so paranoid.
Did you happen to see me playing David May? Not that I really want to bring it up, but
Again.
I did.
Yeah, so that hurt my soul.
I don't know how it couldn't have, because it was painful to watch.
Yeah, alphabetically, really.
Yeah, and then reverse alphabetically. Why not?
I spent the better part of an hour figuring out. 2 cell phones. Yeah, I spent the better part of an hour sitting here trying to decide which X-File I should be. Well, I don't want to be this X-File because it's key, result death, and there's a huge number. Okay, but I don't want to do, okay, but I haven't picked that one. But we've done shows and games where I picked that one, so I don't want to pick that one. And I just went too into it. And then he's like, let's go with A for Alien.
So you want to be either completely random or the Gregors.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So cell phone and a hospital crash cart are the only equipment.
Oh,
First aid is the only combat card. Guess how many adversaries I have?
I'm gonna say 10.
0.
Oh,
You're relying on bluffs, aren't you?
I am basically event denial. So a couple of Luther Boggs to look at your deck.
I get it.
Senator Matheson, the Thinker. Yeah, I've got pretty much all the bluff cards that change a keyword. And then I've got all the event cards that negate a keyword.
Nice.
Ask him what the negate.
Of course, you must have.
Yep. Did you see the video where I talked about the Kresge with the Thinker?
Yeah,
That's amazing. That combo's so stupidly awesome, man.
I've got a Thinker. I'm thinking about putting a second one in.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't go without unexplainable time loss.
You can't. Can I show you something?
Yes, please.
yeah.
So our friend Dax made these. These are. Let me get a light here. Oh, there we go. These are our unexplainable time loss cards.
That's awesome.
So the wording is the exact same, except one's Matt and one's me.
That is sweet. I will tell you, I've been, following the Facebook group, and am loving the new cards. So
Yeah, he makes amazing cards. What was really funny actually is when we hung out with Brian, I showed him one of Dax's printed cards, and Brian was like, "Wait, what? This
exists?
Holy crap! This is good." And I'm like, "I know, he knows his stuff."
So where did you guys get? Because my understanding is like the Scully set text is gone.
Nope.
Where did you guys? So it has resurfaced. Cool.
So, yeah, one of the things that was smuggled out, or whatever you want to call it.
Wait, but it's not smuggling because nobody cared.
Yeah, right. Was literally every single card that was in the approval phase.
Okay.
Including the text, the quote, images, cost, keywords,
the rejections and corrections.
Yeah, and the rejections. That was what was hilarious, is you could actually read some of the rejections from the 1013 people, and they were kind of bitchy.
Oh yeah.
Like,
dude, it was terrible. So at one point early on, they said, "Well, do you really need to put text on? Can't you just put some images on and let them make up their own game?"
What?
They really didn't want anything codified. So think about this for a minute. What is in Batman's utility belt?
Batarang.
Batarang.
Wouldn't you have a batarang?
I don't know.
The short answer is whatever needs to be in the utility belt for that issue, for that TV show, for that movie. And once you start codifying, well, Scully can do this and this and this, but she can't do that or that. Now you put limits on. And they hated that we were codifying, well, that Duncan and Ron and the next crew were codifying anything.
Wow.
Because, it really, so to quote J. Michael Straczynski, the creator of Babylon 5, he was asked at a convention once, how fast can the White Star go? He says, it travels at the speed of plot.
That's good.
So, it's all about, what that episode needs. So, yeah, they just 1013, Chris Carter and 1013 hated that, we were putting, that numbers were being assigned to things and things were sort of given some structure.
Wow.
It never would.
And they hated primary colors. You'll notice there's not like a red or a blue or a green anywhere in any of the marketing materials. It's all sort of that muted pastel. Yeah, you're in some mushroom induced haze.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of it back here.
Yep.
All right. Well, sir, thank you so much for talking to us. And I know that a lot of the fans are going to get a kick out of getting some of the history as well. Did you have any questions for us? I mean, we're an open book. I don't know. Yeah.
Just keep doing what you're doing, man.
We are definitely going to keep doing that.
Oh yeah.
We've only been at this for, well,
7 months.
7 months, and look how far we've come just in 7 months. So we're gonna definitely keep going. I know I clickbaited everybody with our final episode, but I mean,
Yeah, that's true. Our final episode.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, thanks so much for being here, and yeah, I guess we'll see everybody next time on
Matt and Mike's. Okay,
Mike
we'll correct it. Mike and Matt's
X-Files CCG.